Hey everyone, welcome. It's a beautiful spring day finally up here in Minneapolis. And Nancy and I want to welcome you to the EBA webinar podcast series. Thanks for joining us today. We've got Jim Carroll. Jim is the CEO of Sendal. Sendal is one of our valued sponsors for EBA. And I'm really excited about the technology they've got. So we're going to do a little bit more of a town hall forum today and have a great conversation with Jim. But Jim, I'd like to welcome you, and maybe you can give a little introduction, and then we'll dive right in.
Well, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate this opportunity. I think right on the top, I'd like to point out how excited we are at Sendal to be an EBA partner. I mean, it's been a tremendous opportunity. You guys have been very supportive. Just a phenomenal ROI. To tell you the truth, it's you guys do a great job. As we've gone down the path exploring this paradox of high performance homes, you and your team's been great in integrating and networking us with folks, and we've gotten tremendous support from academia, from the industry vendors and organizations like ASHRAE. And honestly, we owe a lot of that to you and your introductions, your ability to bring the right people to the table for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And I think it's more, I always say the EBA is the innovative green builders, right?
Yeah.
And there's some folks that are willing to try some new things, are looking to solve problems actively. So Jim, I'd like to go back in time because I think you've got an incredible career that brought you to date. Can you just tell us about your career and kind of where you've been? And
Sure. The earlier part of my career, I was actually a software developer, did a little bit of hardware as well, but Mike Silver, my CTO and partner at Sendal, we've been working together off and on for 30 years. He'll tell you I crossed over at some point to the dark side and got into the business side of things. But we've worked together a long time, really on a lot of breakthrough technologies, disruptive technologies. And we started off in the telecom space and did a lot of really neat, cool things there. Really, the thing that's more applicable to what we're doing today is we had this multiple application environment that delivered value-added services through the phone network. It was very complicated to do, but it did things like delivered voicemail, delivered call waiting, call forwarding, reduced calls to London from $10 a minute to 30 cents a minute type of thing, right? We sold that business to Lucent. And after leaving Lucent, we got into the smart home space, right? And we did a lot of creative, innovative things there. And that was, as with our telecom business, where we took our hardware model, turned it into a software business. We kind of did the same thing in the smart home space, right? It was very hardware intensive, and we come up with a software service platform that drastically reduced programming time, increased feature functionality. And one of the things along the way we did is we're the first company to let you use your iPhone to turn your lights off and on, turn your thermostat up and down, right? So that really, in an interesting way, started this whole connected home thing, right? All of a sudden, there's this mad rush to the internet. Everyone's going to take their device and make it internet connected. And a lot of people honestly didn't have a business plan for it. And that brought us to where we are now at Sendal.
well, just Jim, that was Control 4, right?
No, that was Savant Systems.
I'm sorry, Savant Systems.
Yeah.
So a lot of you know Savant from more high-end housing, right?
Yeah, we started off in the super high end. The idea of going to the iPhone and the iPad was really to move. I'd love to tell you in hindsight that we saw this vision of bringing smart homes to the masses. It wasn't that. It was to move away from low margin touch panels. You could sell a $10,000 9-inch touch panel, make a little margin on it, and move the budget dollars to distributed audio, distributed video, more controllers, right? So it made it a commodity. What that really allowed us to do is, today at Savant, you can buy it in Home Depot. And I mean, Best Buy, right? So it's in the main aisle of the Best Buy store. So it is available to the masses, right?
That's great.
So we kind of taken those two things, multiple applications, smart home automation and control software, and we've mashed them up together to make Sendal.
Yeah. And Jim, what problem did you see out there? I mean, was it a problem that you experienced? Was it talking to other people? And what problem were you trying to solve when you looked at creating Sendal?
Honestly, in the very beginning, we were looking to build this autonomous home platform. Think of like a Tesla car being an autonomous car, that it would just instrument and do things for you, right? There's a lot of home automation products that do control and scenes that allow you to discreetly turn things off and on, and that's where they end. We do all of that, plus we've added this service environment. So we built all that out, that level of intelligence and integration, before we really found the big problem. And I think I shared with you, then I built a house, right? And then the smart home space is full of indoor air quality. You hear about it, you hear about how to do it, how to deal with it. And I assumed just by asking for the right things, I would end up with a ResNet rated home that would be very good, that would have good indoor air quality.
Yeah.
Well, I got air purifiers, we got all this stuff, these special this and that, low VOC paints, carpets, we did everything we were supposed to do. Lo and behold, you close the doors and windows, within 20 minutes, it's completely hazardous indoors, right? VOCs are gone through the roof, the CO2's high. And then that was my first introduction to what an ERV was.
Yeah, right. Because you knew everything, Jim. And the irony was, like, if you just didn't know to tell the guy, put an ERV in the house, right?
That's right. That's right. And the builder, good friend of mine, and the HVAC contractor, great guy. I started talking about ERVs. I know the folks over at April Air really well. Back in my Savant days, we OEM their thermostat. So they said, "Oh, you need an ERV." I'm like, "What's that?" So I started asking the contractor. He wants to sell me a dehumidifier. I'm like, "I don't want an ERV though." And it was this very high friction kind of discussion that took place, right? And but we went ahead and we got an ERV, and then it immediately became apparent to me.
But you had to
get it solved.
Jim, you even had to add your ERV after the fact, right?
That's right. Yeah. Which costs you about twice as much money.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And the contractor's not happy. He feels like he gave me a great deal and it was still expensive.
Yeah.
Right. But Aaron,
I think the interesting thing, Jim, is you're in there, your house is completely censored. You're trying to make it as smart as possible. You've got the career history to be able to make it really smart. So at least you're seeing that you had bad air quality in the space and you knew to do something about it, which was, I need to add that ERV. Most people never see that. They never know, do they?
No. And what's alarming is if you dig deep enough, since the 70s, when the EPA started affecting the building code, we've built 35 million housing units. The data is showing about 30% of them have some sort of organized ventilation solution. Right. Then when you dig into the field studies, only 10% of them are actually effective. Mm-hmm. It's really alarming, right? And you break down the Pareto of that, you've got installation problems, and the next big thing is human behavior, right? So as we started taking this thing apart, we proved to ourselves that we could positively affect the indoor air quality. We're after taking the humps out, right? Because even sit at ASHRAE, you could have events, you could have people over, and the indoor air quality would go to heck. Get 15 people watching a ball game or something. Long after they're gone, 4 hours later, there's the air quality start to get good again, right? Mm-hmm. So we wanted to see if we could round that out. We proved to ourselves we could do that. But then we also knew that we had to solve these problems, why only 10% of homes would. So we added things. We added a auto configuration ASHRAE mode. So through the app, you just put in how many bedrooms, how many conditioned square feet, cubic feet. If you know the infiltration credit from your blower door test, and then how much CFM your ventilation solution's using, and we go off and we do the math. And that drastically changes the rule of thumb lookup tables, right? So in my home, we went from 40 minutes an hour down to 32 minutes an hour. That's 8 minutes. What does that mean? Well, it's 8 minutes an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. That adds up. It's almost around $100 for me out of pocket expense. 1, 2, we're trying to build high performance homes and we're just being a glutton using energy that we don't need to, right? So that's the paradox we were talking about in the top end of this.
Yeah, right.
How do you address indoor air quality and still solve for high performance?
And Jim, what I want to explain to people is, talk about Sendal and the technology, because basically what you're doing is you're making everything in the house kind of Internet of Things again, I'm an old hockey player, so I'm not going to get this right, but Sendal is the backbone, and it's going to reach out and talk to the sensors, talk to the ERV, can you talk about that, how the backbone of that system actually drives the whole house autonomously?
Sure. So you really have 3 categories of product in the home, technology product, right? You get what the builders provide, and think about the HVAC systems, the major appliances, hot water generation, the thermostats, the door locks. And then there's consumer technology, the gadgets that people call smart home stuff that they bring in themselves, light switches, outlets, various other things. And then there's the really an emerging element of these monitors that do a great job of notifying you about things like your energy consumption. Where's most of your energy going, right? Really designed to help you change your behavior. But they're very much a lean in technology and let me diagnose this. And that's really not for the masses, right? And there's water solutions like that as well. And there's indoor air quality solutions. We happen to work with Airthings and with Swidget. Swidget makes some consumer electronic light switches, dimmers, and outlets that they have these inserts that you do indoor air quality, occupancy, humidity, temperature. So they get some cool stuff like that. We recruit those devices, right? So you got to think about all three of those categories, but don't think about them as the products that you bought. You think about them as their capabilities. Like a simple example is a thermostat. We don't think of it as a thermostat. We think of it as it's a sensor. It will tell me humidity, temperature, and in some cases, occupancy, right? You walk up to it, the screen comes on. It's also an actuator. It will turn air conditioning or heat off and on, right, through its relays. So we decompose a thermostat into 4 different things. Again, not so different than your Tesla car. You get in it, it's going to bring you someplace. It avoids crashing. It got adaptive speed control, won't change lanes. You don't have to tell it, it just does it. So we do that same thing. And now in our service we call Breathe, by the way, that delivers.
Jim, what's it called again?
Breathe.
Oh, Breathe. Yeah.
Breathe. I'm breathing.
Yeah.
And it's about optimizing indoor air quality.
I have to translate your Boston accent.
I know. I speak the closest thing we have in the States to the Queen's English, right? So what that does, it recruits all these devices, right? Either through energy monitoring sensors or like with GE smart appliances. We know when a GE stove turns on and we start ventilation. So as opposed to a fix, we're going to run 32 minutes every hour. Well, the half hour that it's off, if the stove comes on, the stove's contaminating the home for a half hour.
Yeah.
We see the stove come on, we start ventilating, right? We get indications from the indoor air quality sensors that tell us things are going on, right? CO2 starting to climb. Or in Airthings, they can tell us occupancy, the number of people that are in the space. So all of a sudden that goes from 2 to 4, we'll start ventilating, right?
Yeah.
We also monitor outdoor conditions, pollen, fire, humidity levels, and we run fresh air recycles when the outdoor climate most closely matches the indoor climate to reduce the HVAC load, right? So we try to match those things up and get fresh air cycles. So by recruiting all these devices, it really opens us up to solving what up to this point has been a static approach, right? We solve it dynamically, right? I always use the example, you could have 2 identical houses that 3-bedroom homes, a young retired active couple lives in one, a family of 4 or 5 with a pet lives in the other. They have the exact same ventilation solutions. The retired couple's home is going to be over-ventilated, consumes more power than it could possibly ever need. The other folks are probably going to live at best case, marginal conditions at some point and pretty hazardous at others, right? Because it's never going to keep up. Right?
Yeah.
So with our solution, running in both those homes with the exact same equipment, they would both get the desired results they're looking for, right? And that's really what we want to do. And that's recruiting thermostats, HVAC, ventilators, light switches, Airthings, energy monitoring, right? All those parts are now being incorporated to give you, the consumer, the results you're really after.
And Jim, when you say recruiting, what does that mean to me as a homeowner or me as a builder? Is it like Bluetooth enabled, or it's looking for it on Wi-Fi and then you're adding, how is that all added in?
Yeah, so the way our solution operates, we have no hardware, right? We're what they call the cloud, right? So when if our software runs in your home through the cloud, it doesn't run on your phone. We have an app that you enable things you can check statuses with. So our partners that we identify to work with, we integrate with them, not in your home, but in the cloud.
Mm,
So with AirThings, they've got their cloud and their app, we've got our cloud and our app. We integrate at that level. So we protect your identity and your privacy.
mhm,
So our partners don't know it's you. They don't even know your location. They may know geographically you're in Minnesota or this part of Minnesota, right? But they just have an identity that you're part of this house. We actually assign an email address for the house, and that's the identity.
mhm,
So when the builder is building the house, he assigns that email address. All the devices get added to that email address and to their respective clouds. When you enable the Sendal app, we just go off and do all that handshaking to
mhm,
authorize and get permission, and now the house is starting to operate.
mhm.
Not so different, Aaron, than the way you and I could have the same smartphone. What applications we choose to add to the phone, make those very personalized. With a whole family of services, these software services, that what you pick versus what I pick for my home may be different, but it still recruits those same devices, right? So devices need some access. As long as they can get to the internet, we can manage and control them. We don't care if it's Zigbee, Bluetooth, Z-Wave, Wi-Fi, doesn't matter to us. The fact that they get to the internet is what's important.
Right. So you've got to have Wi-Fi, which we all have, but other than that, Sendal can run every sensor, every appliance. And you talked about integrations. I know we've made some introductions for some integrations that you've done, but how much integration do you have today across the industry, and how much more do you hope to add? Because in order for you to do that digital communication, there's some programming you have to do on your side, right?
That's right. That's right. It's something called APIs,
Mhm.
application interfaces, right? And think of them as the on and off roads to the highway, right? So we want to manage the highway and manage the traffic. So we have to do those integrations. So what we've done is very strategically working with at least one or two well-known manufacturers in each category. Thermostats, I think we have 5 or 6 different manufacturers. We support all the Honeywell thermostats. We support Ecobee, Nest, iDevices. So there's a bunch. There's a handful of different lighting control products. We've actually switched gears on how we manage ventilators. We're using the 24-volt AC and smart outlets to do that. So we've had to kind of break the traditional thinking around how some of those things work, to manage dampers, to engage an ERV to come off and on. So instead of that being done with the thermostat through the central HVAC system, then off to we just go directly to it and manage it directly, right? So there's a pretty large list, and it's growing almost every day, right? We work with the Sense and the Wiser from Schneider and their load panel. We support their loads. We're working with Eaton now to do the same thing. Early discussions with Span. So it's, builders have their products they want to use. It's up to us to support those. And Aaron, that really talks to some of the strength of our platform, because we abstract away those different pieces of our hardware from these services. So it's almost invisible. We don't care what thermostat it is, as long as we can control it and set it, right? So
Right.
it's pick what you want. What the builders enjoy is they can often move away from these very expensive thermostats down to something a lot more reasonable price point and get higher performance out of them, right? Other builders, they want to use that high-end thermostat because that's what their clientele expect to see in them. But that's not right for everybody, right? So there's this opportunity with price points to move these things around.
Yeah. So Jim, we talked about the Trinity or the Trilogy,
Trilogy.
how important it is. We kind of operate in these silos today, right? Like, we're really worried about energy over here. We've got that silo. We're worried about water. We're worried about ventilation, but they don't talk to each other. Tell us about that Trilogy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, because as you start down that path originally, I think the 70s, again, the EPA started driving building standards. The unintended consequence was indoor air quality, right? And then we're trying to manage energy with hot water. So the industry, there's a lot of research, a lot of very bright people solving each one of these things independently, as if they're mutually exclusive. But I see it more like a trilogy of 3 books. It has to be solved together, right? Because as we affect indoor air quality, I think to this point, it's been we don't want to over use energy though, right? We see last month, April, we ran out of energy in 10% of the country or something, right? So we got to do a better job of that. But people's health is critical and important, right? I mean, it's paramount. Indoor health, there's a lot of emerging information around childhood diseases and young adults today that they're starting to attribute that it could be indoor air quality, right? We've seen a lot of these things climb in their infection rates. Also, when we knew indoor air quality was getting worse. So by solving these things together, and we're using the same hardware layer, Aaron, so it's not like you need a different light switch to solve for energy or water than you do for indoor air quality, right? As our system learns, because it employs machine learning, it does things like it figures out, great example, my adult children were here at our winter home, and during the day, they start flipping light switches. They don't know what's going on. 10 minutes, what controls this? 10 minutes later, the system tells me your outdoor garage lights are on, and it's the middle of the day, right? I can turn them off from right there. I could say, don't bother me with this again. If I turn them off once or twice when it pushes that, we'll stop asking, we'll just do it, right? So that's conserving energy. Without us pointing the learning module at it, it figured out when we were using hot water and started turning on the hot water recirculator at specific times. Now that saves energy and also saves water, right? So that's another service. So we feel strongly they all have to be solved together. We're going to market first with the Breathe solution. We're heavily involved with some battery folks and some of the load center people I mentioned around solving for the energy piece of it. There's a lot of great technology for battery storage, solar panels, these load centers. Nobody's worrying about the demand side inside the home. So we're in early discussions with some of these smart appliance folks to be able to put your hot water in a hibernate mode because you don't use it after 8 o'clock at night.
On which mode?
A hibernate mode, right? So it's
hibernate.
Like vacation,
yeah, gotcha.
Vacation mode, maybe.
Yeah.
So if you 90% of the time don't use hot water after 9 o'clock, we can tell it to stop heating to 120. It will hold that water temperature, especially if nobody's using it, for hours. Then we turn it back on, take it out of vacation mode at 5 o'clock in the morning. So instead of running 4 times an hour, it hasn't run now for 8 hours. It's your second biggest consumer of power in the home, hot water heater, right? You can do the same thing with HVAC. We've connected with the demand response, right? And community demand. So instead of taking all the thermostats and doing a dwell setback of 4 degrees, we'll set back maybe the 2 or 3 thermostats that aren't in the primary living space, aren't in the areas where there's occupancy. We can make a significant change. Because why do people opt out of those programs? They don't want to be uncomfortable.
Right.
But we can conserve the energy, get the power company the results they're looking for, and keep you comfortable, right? And this all still ties back into that indoor air quality solution, right? Because we want to run ventilators, but on demand may shut those ventilators off. Now you get bad air quality because it's time of use or something. Well, if we're properly balancing and managing that, that's not an issue.
Right.
That's why I say they all have to be solved together.
Yeah. Talk about, I'm fascinated with this. I'm sure for you, it's really easy, but talk about the geofencing part of it. I think that's great.
When I asked me a question,
I just assume it's magic, but
it's not. There's actually, when we first did geofencing in our other life, it was a very complicated thing. You had to do all this code development. Now there's actually services out there that we can subscribe to, right? Soon as you start building cloud and cloud solutions, it's a very high level of reusability of technology. So it's a paid for service. We register for it, and we can provide through the app boundaries that people want to. You could say, when I'm 2 miles away, engage my comfort settings, or if I'm away from home for more than an hour, disable comfort settings, right? So no more of setting this house into your away home mode. We're just going to react to your status. So if all the phones have left the home, and we just got a recent request that we're going to lean in on ear things with the occupancy, can they tell us if pets are home? Like, people's pets are very important to them. So maybe there's 3 states: home and away, and away, but there's a pet there. So they're susceptible to poor indoor air quality. They don't want to get really hot, right? It's so there's different levels of this. So it's geofencing is a great technology. It's really matured in the last 5 or 6 years to become an available service right?
Yeah. So, again, essentially I could program it. I pull out of my driveway, I get to the corner of the block. Everything I forgot to turn off in my house automatically shuts off, right?
Right, right. Probably wouldn't be that quick because we want to make sure you're really gone. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
What I love about this, Jim, is, I think we always say, if you're a builder, remodeler, architect on the phone, we can design the perfect house on paper, right? And we can install the perfect house on paper. That's not what scares anybody. It's the operational phase where the homeowner takes over. And I think what you're getting to with this solution, Jim, is it's that drivability of the home. It's taking all the guesswork out. I don't need to know about. I think you were even telling me on the ERVs, like you can program filter replacement every 6 months, right?
Right. Actually, we're looking at algorithms around based on usage and contaminant levels now. So if we
Yeah.
know there's a lot more PM10 in the last 3 months, you may want to replace it earlier than if it was PM1, right?
Right.
Under NDA, we're talking to a company that makes these airflow sensors that are relatively inexpensive, that will be able to actually measure the decline of airflow based on how filthy. So doing things like that is going to make a huge difference. It's got to be autopilot, not set it and forget it, right? Set it and forget it, you hit a mountain. Autopilot will drive its way around the mountain.
Right.
To solve some of those human behavior things that were part of that Pareto of what's wrong, why do these systems not work? We have services. So if the homeowner shuts off a ventilation system, we'll push them a notice right away saying, you've disabled this, it's going to lead to poor indoor air quality. And then when the sensors start telling us it's actually is poor indoor air, we'll remind them, you shut it off, the indoor air quality is now getting really bad. They don't respond to that. When it gets critical, we use Sonos speakers. We play over the Sonos. Your indoor air quality has exceeded your previous set point. Do something about it, right?
Right.
So very powerful. Even along those lines, and I experienced just a couple of weeks ago, talking about my Cape house, the aeration company came and opened up the sprinkler system. Well, for some reason, they unplugged the ERV in the basement and they plugged in some tool they needed to use. They didn't plug it back in. About an hour later, I got a notice that the ERV seems to be unpowered, to check if it's been unplugged, if the circuit breaker is blown, because those things happen. And that's how these systems get defeated, right? So we try to build in all these things that make you and I as users living in the home aware that something's changed, that it's gone beyond our control to rectify.
Yeah. Is there even the ability, Jim? Like, we always think I've got these great systems in somebody's home. I've done the net zero home or zero energy ready home or passive house, whatever it is. And the homeowner doesn't know, like, or they forget that air source heat pump is under warranty for 10 years or 12 years. But they call Bob, nothing against Bob's Plumbing out in the Cape. Bob's a good guy, but I don't want him calling Bob's Plumbing. I want him calling me. I want my service team from my HVAC installer to go out there and remedy the problem under warranty. Is there that ability to kind of do house as a service with this tool?
There is. We have a developing partner right now called Centriq. We're doing an API integration with, and they're a virtual digital binder. Several of the high performance builders that are EBA pointed us towards them. And what it allows the builder to do is catalog everything that's in the house. And then through their service, product recalls get pushed to the builder, right? Everything from the paint chips for what color this wall was, that wall, the warranty and the manufacturing.
Yeah. And Bob, just because of your accent, and I don't mean to, those of you that don't know, I lived in Connecticut for 10 years. I am in the right spot to describe what Jim's saying. What's the name of the company that's doing this?
Centriq, CENTRIQ, I think.
Centriq, CENTRIQ.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Centriq, thank you.
Super. So what's cool about that service, beyond the fact that, several builders pointed it towards them, is they'll catalog the ventilation equipment. And when you're setting up the Sendal system, we can just query that and will tell us that it's a Brown or an April ERV 200 CFM, and that will automatically go into our hash rate calculation. So the installer doesn't even have to enter the number of bedrooms anymore, or the square footage. We're just going to learn that from this digital binder, right? So trying to remove opportunities for error, right? Let
Right.
software do what it does best, and that's deal with lots of data, dynamic nature of data, and drive through algorithms the outcome that you're looking for.
Okay. So I know we got a ton of questions coming in. We'll get to those in just a second. But if I want to engage with Sendal, how do I do it as a builder, remodeler, an architect in this industry? What's the pathway? What does it look like?
It's very straightforward. It's pretty simple. We've got builders today coming into our webpage, filling out information form. We reach out. After we go through a series of takeoffs, review what they're trying to accomplish, what their ventilation strategy is.
Yeah.
I just did one today. The uplift for a builder doing a couple of hundred homes was about $500 difference than what he was doing previously, right? So what are those changes? We'll do some 24-volt AC rewiring with relays that we can control, adding air things or switch devices to it, right? And an energy monitor. So it's not a huge expensive uplift, but they're getting the outcomes and results they're looking for.
Right.
And oh, by the way, because our platform is a smart home platform, does scene control and some of that autonomous home functionality, that's free to the builder. So the consumer buys these services that layer on top of it. So the builder can position and advertise a smart home. And we integrate with like all the Honeywell alarm panels and all those things. So they can do a lot of the things they've been doing already.
Right.
This builder today said it would probably displace about $2,300 of smart home stuff they used to put in. And
Okay, so you got an uplift of 500, but you're saving
minus, so you're ahead of the game, right?
1,800 positive.
Yeah.
And Jim, what's the website? Is it sendal.io? Am I
That's
correct?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to put it in the chat here just so everybody can. Sendal.io is the site, and so really the open to builders, remodelers.
That's right.
Is there anybody that can't be a client today? I mean, can a homeowner do this as well?
We're not really homeowner focused today.
Okay.
We've got about 100 systems out there, right? And majority of those are homeowners. They're beta trial sites, folks that work for manufacturers that wanted to put it into their home. So, but the real, for our opportunity to scale and be successful, we're really focusing on the builders that are in your organization, right? Part of what you're doing, we can deliver these meaningful outcomes to those builders. We also, through the website, obviously, technology partners reach out. You're always helping me connect to the best in breed manufacturers. Some of them are chasing us too, right? So it's a good way to make that triangulation.
Oh, I think it's been great because you've connected with some of the HVAC sponsors from EBA, the air quality sponsors, the air filtration sponsors, and they're, you're doing that API or that digital handshake with each of those products. And again, it's, we see systems that run just the air side system, but not a system that runs the whole house in the cloud. I actually love that it doesn't have a bridge that's required because, I've got a Sonos bridge right now and Sonos keeps saying, oh, why don't you upgrade that thing? And
Yeah.
I don't know.
We've been there, done that, right? I think my time at Savant, I think we had 1,200 different pieces of hardware we sold, and we supported over 300,000 third-party devices. So that's just a heavy lift.
Yeah.
This is a more modern way to do it. This is IoT versus connected home.
Yeah.
There is a technology difference there.
Let's talk about one other area that you and I have talked about late at night. It's the healthy home kind of enablement, right? I mean, do we see, because, again, we can do all this great stuff for a healthy home, design it perfectly, build it perfectly, but it's the operational phase. And it seems like the Sendal system with the right sensors in the building would be able to verify that that is a healthy home in terms of air quality or water savings or water quality, whatever it might be, right?
That's right. And it's interesting that's come up with builders, right? Because the high performance builders I've heard from several of them. Consumers are looking to buy a high performance home. So what do? They Google it. Next time they get on their Google webpage, they see a Amazon ad for a $300 indoor air quality sensor.
Right.
And now the customers are calling them saying, I just bought this house. I got high formaldehyde. What's this mean? Right.
Right.
Now
Right.
the builder's on the defensive. Or
Right.
talking to a builder the other day talking about humidity in one of the bathrooms.
Mhm.
Well, with us, to be able to put in a Swidget type of humidity sensor,
Mhm.
we'll engage the bathroom fan if they don't. And then with his ventilation strategy, we'll be able to engage a fresh air intake that passes through a dehumidifier and use dampers to pump that air into that bathroom, right? So very specific pointed solution around that. And it's the same works with stoves and appliances. If someone starts cooking, we can turn on the overhead vent if they don't do it, right? Or we can turn on a bathroom fan that may be adjacent to the kitchen, which is often the case. So the steps we can take to incorporate and enable these type of solutions. The builders are looking for is a way for us up front. So different take on that same equipment through some of our energy monitoring partners, our water management folks, and our indoor air quality. We could print out a report that says this house has good indoor air quality. There's no floating neutrals or grounds, and the water pressure is appropriate. There's no leaks. So here you go. Here's your new home. Right now, it's okay. They move in, and a week later, they say, oh, the indoor air quality has gone to heck. Well, did you follow our advice about low VOC carpets and materials? What do you give you a list of, recommended cleaning agents. Those things are all going to have an impact on this, right? And so it's, how can we better manage this? And if they happen to be using our platform and not using our Breathe app, the builder could also, well, you should sign up for this solution as well, because this will more aggressively manage your indoor air quality.
And is it BREATHE?
Yes.
So the Breathe app, I just posted that for everybody.
You think a guy from Boston would come up with a word that doesn't have an R in it, right?
I know.
And what am I doing in the smart home space either?
Yeah. I mean, I hope your tagline is it's wicked smart.
It's wicked smart.
Wicked smart.
Want to write that down?
Jim, well, I've got you before we dive into questions. I just want to ask one other thing. As you look at high performance net zero homes, what do you see coming down the pike that we don't know about yet? What do you see that builders are missing? What should we be thinking about adding to the home, doing in the home? What are the young hip kids doing out there, Jim?
Well, those are almost two different questions, right?
Okay, yeah.
Well, I think the demand for smart ventilation is only going to grow.
Yeah.
Right. When you see that data that 30% of the homes built since the mid-70s actually have a solution, my house included, the home office is becoming a space that needs to, on the smart side, there should be better technology to make that possible, but also it brings a higher demand for ventilation than exists today. I'm sure in my home office, I'm sitting here today, the indoor air quality here is probably not that great now that I'm sitting here talking to you, blabbing on about all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there needs to be some very pointed solutions, right? And so it needs to be thought about differently. And I would point builders towards the energy raters, right? We've been fortunate enough to meet several that design the HVAC systems for the high performance builders, actually do the programming.
Yeah, so they're doing the ACA manual, Jay, for the builder, right?
That's right.
They're laying everything out. They're commissioning those things. They might be a good partner in this as well, right?
That's right. That's right. It's a great opportunity because they've got a wealth of knowledge, and in every case that our builders connected us with their resource, their building science resource, these folks are leaning in and they're saying, I know that we're compliant to I can check all the boxes, but you're absolutely right. We're in one of those three states. We're under ventilating, we're over ventilating. We're really not crossing the goal line and delivering what's possible. And they get very excited about what we're doing. Right? Yeah. So I think that would probably, because they're going to know, and builders need to know your customers, right? And it's what are these models being built for? Is there an indoor gym? Is there a space that could be used? You have to approach those things differently. And just based on the square footage shouldn't drive you to how much CFM is going to be required for that home. It's really how's that home going to be used.
Mhm.
So I know it does create variables and creates this thought process that we have to go through now. But I think leaning on these energy raters could be a path to delivering the proper home for the proper community type.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, I'd like to go to some questions if we could, Jim. And Aaron Doherty, I'm going to start with you. So Aaron's a remodeler. They've got their own 1973 split level, and it sounds like they've been doing a great job of making this a high performance home. You know, aero barrier in it, brand new HVAC system, heat pump upstairs, but that resulted in high indoor humidity upstairs. Then they installed a Honeywell ventilating dehumidifier, which runs a set number of minutes each hour, and then they use an air things wave to alert them to IAQ issues. When they use the cooktop, the IAQ suffers, and then they manually turn on the ventilating dehumidifier. So it's a good solution, but again, it's relying on a manual response. That seems like a perfect use case for Sendal or the Breathe system, right?
Breathe, that's right. Everything you touched on, we integrate with. So there's, we can make that auto magic, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. So we could deal with all those scenarios involved with that. The devil's in the details. How is that ventilation hooked up? Is it, they have dampers on it, all those type of details, but it's pretty straightforward once you understand the very specifics about it, right? Our algorithms take the inputs, whether it's from air things or a humidification stat or an appliance running, and it gets passed through the same algorithm, and we're engaging ventilation based on that, right? And then de-engaging based on results.
Right.
So, you can come up with all these permutations of things, but in reality, they all boil down to this smart algorithm that is the Breathe service, right?
Well, it sounds like you would take that ventilating dehumidifier, you'd maybe put a smart plug between that and the wall, you'd connect that back into the Breathe or Sendal system, and then it would be able to turn that on and turn it off automatically. Is that kind of how that would be?
So without knowing that specific equipment, but it's 24 volts AC, I guarantee you, is what engages it and disengages it.
Yeah.
You typically want to leave them plugged in.
Mhm.
About a third of ventilator products, when you unplug them, they default to open. So now the outdoor air is coming in, right? I don't know why they do that. Those manufacturers have a reason, right? But the ones that default closed, you're fine with just controlling the power to the device. The ones that default open, we put a smart outlet in with a 24 volt AC transformer rated. Same thing that, the channel, they know how to use that. We run that to it. We turn that outlet off and on.
Yeah.
We identify that outlet as, fresh air intake management, and we engage it, right? Based on the algorithm saying, do this now.
Automatic.
So it's just gonna manage it.
I like a question from our good friend Armando Cobo. Armando, always great to see you. And it's one that I meant to ask. Armando, thanks for bringing it up. But are high-tech systems and appliances connected to smart technology vulnerable to hacking? If so, what are the best solutions, and what does Sendal utilize to prevent that?
A couple of pieces to that, right? The anything is open to hacking if you don't take personal responsibility for it. Safety and security is a day-to-day effort by any software business, right? That problem space changes daily. We take steps, and I touched on a little bit, to protect your personal privacy. We've got this concept that the home has its own email identity. So now it's totally detached from you. Some of the builders are going to want to use an extension that's the builder's name. Others just want to use a Sendal address, or we just randomly come up with some Gmail address for the home, right? So all the devices get connected to that. So even our technology partners don't know it's you, right? Which is important. We're not tracking you personally. We're tracking the behavior in the home. So it abstracts, that's another layer of abstraction away. And obviously, with any time you're creating a password, which you will do in the Sendal home, don't use admin, don't use 1234, don't use password, right? Every year they release the top 100 most commonly hacked passwords. And you almost get to a point, because nobody deserves to be hacked. If you feel like you deserve to be hacked for that one.
Right.
If you just, most of these systems come up with hack-proof emails, passwords. Just use it. Your device is going to remember it,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's
I mean, your smartphone will generate a hack-proof password for you, and remember it, use that.
That's right. That's right. And you hear these horror stories about, this guy at the security company, peeking in at a camera and stuff. We've pretty much prevented all that kind of stuff from happening. But still use quality parts, go to quality manufacturers and vendors that are reputable. I always shy away from that 80% cheaper, buy it online and from some country you don't know about, right? Who knows what they've done with this product.
Right. And Jim, I have to imagine all of these products that we're putting in our home have 256-bit encryption.
Yeah, and beyond that, there's even more capabilities it's just don't stay with the default password, change the password. Our methodology of it's called OAuth allows us to, with permission and authority, talk to these other devices. And if there's things that we don't like, we'll just turn them off as well, right? And we'll notify you that this doesn't seem right. There's, if suddenly a camera set's asking permission from us to get access to something else in your home, we don't think it should be looking for that. We just shut down that communication path.
Yeah.
So we're very focused on being very secure, right? The cloud technology and the encryption standards are very, very secure. As much as you hear about all these hacks, everything you own is in the cloud. All your banking's there, your mortgage is there, your deeds are there. So it's, people aren't losing their houses every day, right? But if you take the proper steps and be prudent about it, you're going to be okay, right?
Yeah. Jim, what are the chances that one faulty system shuts down the entire house controls? Or is it the opposite, that you're going to see the faulty system and be alerted to it?
Well, you're correct to that, right? If something's gone offline, we can't communicate with it, right? That's a challenge, or if it's misbehaving. We have services. We have smart appliance monitoring. We'll tell you, we think you left the stove on, right? The same way we tell you, we think you left the light on, right? But there's multiple levels of redundancy built into the system here. If for some reason Sendal went away, you would still all have your individual apps to control all the individual things, right? So you don't lose that. If Alexa has an outage for some reason, you can still pick up your Sendal app to control things, right? Because we integrate with Sendal. So you can say, I can say, Alexa, turn on the hot water if I want to take a shower. If it's outside of the time zone that the system thinks it should be on. All that's happening is Alexa's just telling us to turn on the shower. We turn it on. Well, you can get to that 3 ways. I can pick up this widget app and turn on the hot water recycler. I can tell Alexa through the Alexa app, or I can do it through the Sendal app. So you've got those multiple levels of redundancy. And the question that always follows that is, what happens when I lose the internet? Well, the data shows the internet's more reliable than the power grid.
Then the what?
Lost the power grid. If you've lost power to your home, you don't need the internet. You know what I mean? And actually, my Cape house, I have a large Sonos system, the built-in amps. So I have a battery backup on that, and my Comcast cable router internet access also plugged into that battery backup. So we did have a power outage for like a day, but I still had access to the internet, and I could play music, right, until the batteries died. So the internet, in my experience, has been more reliable, has better uptime than the power grid does.
Yeah.
Right? And if you have no power, you can't control your stove, you can't control your TV anyhow. So what's the point, right?
Yeah. Well, I hope you have a great battery backup or a microgrid.
That's right.
That, but this is a great follow-on question that I think that with a lot of these smart systems in our home, like smart recirculation pumps, smart ERVs, I'm getting a heat pump water heater put in my house, right? The thing is smart. It's wicked smart.
Wicked smart.
And they're making their own efficiency decisions with their own apps. Does that cloud app override them? And I think you just kind of told us about that, but explain how that works, Jim.
Well, we've got a couple of those examples, and really it's complementary, right? Because there's always the opportunity, if any device is trying to be energy efficient and goes into some mode, to wake it back up. So if something goes to sleep and we decide it's time to use it, we'll just wake it up the same as you picking up their app and turning it back on, right? So you have that exact same interaction. The difference is, again, we're doing it on your behalf. It's on autopilot, right? So that doesn't limit or reduce the impact of what we do. It enhances it, because we can also invoke those hibernation modes, if you will, right? So those same capabilities, we can tell it to go into that mode if we. So there's no crosstalk that prevents great performance. It only enhances that capability.
Okay, oh, that's great. We have one question or comment that it sounds like Sense technology a little bit, which knows the plug loads by their startup profile and then allows the owner to know what's demanding energy and how much. I think we see this with the Wiser system.
That's right.
With Schneider as well, right? Are you combining this with if this then that kind of an algorithm?
No, this goes well beyond if then this that. This is
Okay.
Sense is an integrated partner, so we're fully integrated with them.
Okay.
Mike, my CTO, has an older home, so he's all electric house, but none of his appliances are smart. So the Sense monitor tells us his cooktop turned on, and then we turn on ventilation, right? And my Cape house, the GE smart range tells me the range just turned on and we turn on ventilation. So we get to the same thing different ways.
Yeah, you get into the same.
Right.
It's just a circuit, that's telling you what's going on.
Yeah. If then this else is one, it's not as reliable. If you've ever played around with it, it will miss 20% of the time things. And it's very fixed on what could it do. Our algorithms are dynamic, right? I don't think you could build, actually we had an engineer from one of our ventilation partners said, I could build this with Alexa and if then this else. It was just a very simple example of us turning on the stove. We start ventilating, we turn on the overhead. Good. They're all supported by Alexa, also. Next time we're on a call, he goes, I went at this for like 10 hours and I couldn't get it to work. I said, oh, you could just use our solution and it works, right? The level of complexity in the software is so multi-dimensional that you can't, you'd have to get cadenate together 20 if then this else's, and it would just get lost, right?
Right. So I think you bring up a good point, which is that the companies that we don't see on your device support webpage, could those be managed and controlled by Sendal as well?
Yeah, I mean, there's products that Sense or Fin or hopefully starting a relationship with Flume here, so that they could tell us stuff about things working. We don't necessarily have the control of it. I can't shut off Mike's stove, but maybe with the Eaton circuit breakers, I could shut the stove off if I thought. Not really a graceful use case. Right. The stove people tell you do that a couple of times, you're going to avoid your warranty. Nope. No electronic device likes that hard shut off, right? Not to mention now you got to go home and reprogram your clock.
Right.
Who knows how to do that? I don't even know how to do that. Can't get the clock to stop flashing. I'm like, on myself.
That's the killer app maybe for you to reset my
take
clock.
your phone time and just make it go to Well, kids, it was the VCR, right? No one can get the VCR clock right.
Yeah. So I guess what was the answer to that, Jim? You can manage things, or
we can manage things. If they have an API, there has to be API integration. Some partners integrate against our API. It's in the public domain. On the developer tab on our webpage, you can see how to connect to our system, right? As an individual, you could make your own instance of that. If you want to publish it, you have to go through our vetting security process, become a real partner. In many cases, we develop against a partner's API. So it all depends what that relationship's going to look like. And we have an outcome economics business model, which we didn't touch on. So our third-party technology partners integrate against our API. As we collect our monthly subscriptions for these different services, we actually share that revenue with those third parties. It's based on a weighted contribution, right? That accomplishes a lot of things for a lot of constituents. It drives those companies to do more, to be more recruitable for other future services. It equates to more services for the homeowner. Things start showing up that when they bought the device, it wasn't capable of, and it starts doing it. A great example are our friends over at GE. I have 2 GE monogram kitchens. All of a sudden, one day they send me an email saying, your ovens are now air fryers. Update the app. I was completely happy with those products when I bought them. They performed perfectly well. And because they're IoT centric, they just got better. Right? That's the promise of the Internet of Things. And when companies integrate against our API, those adoptions just automatically become available in the system. It makes it so much more powerful. You talk about the value exchange and purchasing a smart device. Nobody wants to pay an extra monthly fee to control a thermostat that they already paid for. If they want to turn the heat up and down, right? They are willing to pay an extra fee a month to get good indoor air quality that recruits that smart thermostat. So if that smart thermostat come up with a new feature and capability that made it more capable to deliver better air quality to our system, they're building customers for life, right? Those homeowners are going to tell their friends about how cool that thermostat is.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as we're wrapping up, Jim, is it okay to get, if somebody has more questions, Armando says, I got questions, I want to talk to Jim. Can we give him your? Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to type Jim's email in the chat. Jim, what's your email again?
jcarroll, CARROLL at Sendal.io.
Okay, I just put it out in the chat.
Yep,
Armando is going to be reaching out to you.
Please do, Armando.
I've got, maybe we have time for one final question. I like this one from James. Any comments on vehicle to home integration, ranging from using an electric vehicle with a bidirectional car charger as emergency backup and off-grid mode with an AC connection to a fully grid interactive connection in junction with a grid interactive inverter in the home and high voltage DC connection from vehicle battery?
Wow.
Which I love, by the way. I think that's where my house is going pretty soon here.
Okay.
So James, I love this question. Can you deal with that, Jim? I'm
sure we can. Right? There's a big hole in the whole energy space that we want to fill, right? How to balance when we're using battery. What happens if the battery is not going to get us through the time of use? When do we do trickle charge? This idea of these hybrid inverters, right? And we think we can fill that space. The very specific part about his question, could I use my car to power my house during a power outage, I assume? You see the ads, Ford's got that F-150, they're going to power the house. I don't know if I'm in a power outage, if I'm really excited about taking my vehicle that could potentially get me and my family outside of this hazardous area and start using that power to watch TV, right? You got to watch the ball game though. I know, it's tough, but I think it's possible. Now I hear from the battery technology folks saying that's going to wear and tear in your car battery a lot differently than it was designed to do. So you're going to early obsolete your own car battery, which is a very expensive process. Some of the car battery folks are telling us, no, that's just marketing stuff. So I don't know where the truth is, but in the day that becomes a reality, we'll be able to manage it, right? And I hate to oversimplify this, but we're software centric. We don't have to, for the next version of our product. Agnostic. Yeah, you're agnostic. We don't need a new processor. We don't need more memory. We don't need any of those things that gate hardware products from evolving and taking the next step in evolution, right? Awesome. And Jim, if people want to meet you, are you going to be able to make it to Scottsdale this fall for the EVA? I am. Okay. So Jim and the team will have a booth there. It'll be another great opportunity. I think you put in some speaking sessions too, did you not? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Working with Nancy on that. But please go Sendal.io. Every time I talk to Jim, I'm probably like all of you, I'm like, wait, it can do that? When can I get one in my house? And I know, Jim, we're talking about, you can do apartment buildings as well, right? That's right. We're looking at that project you have going. So it's yeah. So I'm gonna stay on with you. We're gonna talk about that project. Okay, that sounds good. I apologize to everyone that we couldn't get to their questions today. We definitely tried. Jim, so great having you. This will be up on the EBA Academy and on the YouTube page for those of you that want to share it with anybody else. But thanks so very much. Well, thank you. And again, I appreciate your support, your team support, and the whole community really that you've opened up to Sendal, right? You've really a great shortcut for us to meet some of the thought leaders and all these different categories. So thank you again, Aaron. I really appreciate it. That's awesome, Jim. All right, man. Thanks, everyone. Bye now. Bye.